Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem was a very refreshing take on the iconic characters, as well as one of the best animated movies in the last 10 years. One of the main reasons for that uniqueness and quality in the story was the main villain, Superfly. When I first watched this movie, I was not expecting much from this character, but by the end of the film, I found myself absolutely a fan of Superfly. And today, I wanted to break down why he works so well as a villain. As usual, I'm going to be breaking my analysis into 3 categories: compelling motivation, protagonist foil, and intimidating presence. Before we get into the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like and subscribed and help me get to my goal of 10,000 subs before the end of the year. Really quick, also, I'm gonna issue a spoiler warning for this video, so just a heads up for anyone who hasn't watched the movie yet. Alright, with all of that out of the way, let's begin. Traditionally, most villains in animated movies don't have the most complex or compelling of motivations. Almost half of these bad guys are just out for money or power, or are even bad simply because they are just Now, that doesn't necessarily make them bad villains, but it does make it harder for the audience to connect with them, since their shallow motives make them seem more like a plot device rather than an actual character. Superfly does not suffer from this problem, however, and that is because he has understandable motives which justify his actions in his mind. In the bowling alley scene, Superfly explains how he was raised by Baxter Stockman, and how humans rejected both his father and his mutant creations, even recounting a tale where a persistent and hateful human tried to kill some of his brothers and sisters. It was this seemingly never-ending hatred the humans had towards his kind that motivated Superfly to start fighting back and protect his family. At the end of the day, Superfly isn't after something selfish, but instead his goal is to make a world where his family can live safely in peace, which in his mind means that he has to eliminate all the humans in the world. Even though his genocidal plans are not morally good, they spawn out of a genuinely good desire to protect his family. It is this kind of relatable and understandable motivation that allows the audience to not exactly root for Superfly, but to sympathize with him and understand why he is doing what he is doing. In other words, having a compelling motivation for his antagonistic actions is what helps Superfly feel more like an authentic character in the movie rather than a shallow plot device. In order to make sure everyone understands this category, I'm going to quickly explain what a foil is. In filmmaking, a foil is a character that is the opposite of another character. This juxtaposition then allows for the opposite traits of those characters to be emphasized. In this movie, Superfly is a foil for the Turtles as well as Splinter, and his qualities help to highlight the defining qualities of the movie's protagonists. For example, Splinter experienced the rejection of humanity, and that led him to isolating himself and his family from the rest of the world. Superfly has also experienced the rejection of humanity, but instead, his reaction was to try to turn the rest of the world into a safe place for mutants rather than isolating himself. Both characters were faced with the same problem, but they both reacted to it differently, and that is what defines them and makes them who they really are. Another example is the core belief systems of both the Turtles and Superfly. The Turtles believe that they can work with the humans and use their mutant powers for the greater good, helping to create a unified society where they can be accepted. Superfly, on the other hand, believes that humans are beyond being reasoned with and uses his mutant powers for evil, deciding that the only way for his people to live in peace is to wipe out humanity. The Turtles and Superfly are presented with the same problem, but they both react to it differently, and that varied reaction is highlighting the defining qualities of both the protagonist and the antagonist. This can best be seen in the scene where Superfly is trying to convince the Turtles to go along with his plan, and they ultimately decide to try to stop him and sabotage his machine instead. That moment has so much depth and impact because it is a defining moment for our heroes. They are deciding that they will stop Superfly because of their firm belief in being able to reconcile with humans and form a unified society. Their beliefs compel them to make a hard decision. The reason that this character-defining moment occurred, however, was because of the foil nature of the movie's antagonist, Superfly. The conflicting beliefs between the Turtles and Superfly make for impactful character moments like this, which is another reason why Superfly is a great villain, because his contrasting character forces the protagonists to show their rawest form. One of the best ways to make your villain memorable and feel like a threat is to make them extremely intimidating every time they are on screen. Superfly falls under this category of intimidating villain, and it's due to several key factors. Firstly, he is built up extremely well, and in order to show this, I'm going to compare Superfly's build-up to one of the most unanimously praised villain build-ups in all of cinema, the build-up of the shark in Jaws. At the beginning of Jaws, we hardly get to see the shark at all, but from the little time he spends on screen, we see how capable and dangerous he is. Much in the same way, at the start of TMNT Mutant Mayhem, we briefly see Superfly, but we mostly just see the effects of his power. Just like the shark from Jaws, his threat level as well as his mysterious nature are both built up well in this first scene through the use of ambiguity. Later in Jaws, the shark attacks again, this time killing a little boy, and the viciousness of this attack and the loss of life from it establishes the shark as a terrifying threat long before Chief Brody's first close-up encounter with it. Similarly, we learn from April that Superfly kills everyone who works for him, which adds to his menacing presence even before the turtles actually come face to face with him. Both movies use threatening ambiguity as well as prior encounters with characters other than the protagonist to masterfully build up their respective villains' terrifying screen presence. In both instances, because the way the movie doesn't clearly display their villains right away, the audience will use context clues presented to them to construct an idea of what this menacing threat must be like. Allowing the audience to form their own horrific conclusions is part of what makes both the shark from Jaws as well as Superfly's build-up so impressive. The second part of having an intimidating screen presence is to be an actual threat while on screen, and once again, this is something that Superfly achieves. Let's look at the first chase scene where the turtles are trying to steal the last part of his machine. The turtles successfully fight off the other members of his gang, but then they get a warning from Wingnut that Superfly is approaching and won't take it so easy on the turtles in the same way that the rest of the group has been. This warning from Wingnut serves to separate Superfly as a threat from the rest of the other mutants. He is much more dangerous than they are, and this idea is reinforced when he busts open the back of the van and easily defeats all the turtles before stealing back the final component to his machine. The way that Superfly effortlessly beats all the turtles when the rest of his crew had failed establishes for the audience that he is much more powerful, violent, and ruthless, which makes him the supreme threat in the film. And it's not just this scene either, but almost every scene Superfly is in, the writing team utilized different techniques to make him an intimidating threat. Like in the bowling alley scene where he tells the turtles about a time he nearly beat a human to death and about his plan to essentially commit genocide against the human race, that shows his scary and murderous nature. Or like how in the docks fight scene, he was beating all the mutants combined in his regular form and then got exponentially stronger after the ooze fused him with a bunch of animals, further solidifying how much more powerful he was than our heroes. All of these little things serve to make Superfly be considered a highly dangerous threat by the audience, which thereby makes every interaction with him feel like it's packed with tension, just like an encounter with a great villain should be. Superfly was such an amazing villain, and it's all thanks to the writers who took special care to make him iconic. Mutant Mayhem is an incredible movie, and I definitely intend on making another video covering other characters such as the Turtles or Splinter in the future. So if you want to stay informed for whenever I drop my next TMNT video, then make sure to subscribe and hit that bell and help me get to my goal of 10,000 subs by the end of the year. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed my character study on Superfly, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Have a great day.